Good evening, everybody. Wonderful. I am the proud superintendent of Indian Prairie School District. My name is Adrian Talley, and I want to welcome you tonight to our first boundary meeting. I'm not going to speak a lot. That is all going to be done by the people sitting at the table. I just want to give a few words of welcome and to thank you. I have to tell you, I walk and talk. So if you try to keep turning your head to find where I am, you're going to get a little bit ill. So just understand that's what I do. Most importantly, I want to thank you for your commitment tonight. Not just tonight, for all the nights that will happen. This is probably one of the most important things that happens in a school district. Understanding boundaries and deciding what boundaries may look like going forward for the next few years. No one really wants to do boundaries, but they need to be done. We have schools that are overutilized and schools that are underutilized, and we need to address that going forward in the future. And so your commitment tonight is to look at things not from just your specific school, but how do we address and support all of Indian Prairie School District? Because we are a school district. People will often hear me say, are we a school system or are we a system of schools? And the better thing is to be a school system. That's when you have synergy, and that's when you are able to achieve the successes that you have. And we have achieved a lot in the past and will continue to do so in the future. I also want to say there are no already decided decisions. We go into this completely unknown. You are going to help with that, making some of those decisions. You will help us as we move forward on this. And so again, I want to say thank you for your commitment. Thank you for knowing that this information should stay within here, because we don't want misinformation to go out and people think that decisions have been made. And finally, as I said before, thank you for helping us improve Indian Prairie, not just an individual school, but the school district. And so tonight, Mr. Rob Schwartz from RSP Associates, he has worked with us in the district for years, is going to lead us through this work. So Rob?
Thank you. So good evening. Some of you I've already spoke with because we've had many conversations about what's happening with growth, what's happening with development, how are things changing with the way we look at some of our ordinances in Aurora and Naperville. Tonight is probably going to be the worst meeting where you have to listen to us, the consultant, talk. And it's one of those things, if you think about when your kids go to school and you get your syllabus, or your kids get your syllabus, we have to have some guidelines of how we come to this conversation. And so I appreciate Dr. Talley setting you on how you should be able to think about this process. We are going to stretch you, and I have to again state what he said. There is no decision that's been made either by our team, the board members, or even administration. We literally are coming into this with the idea that there's either too many kids in some buildings, there's too few kids in some buildings, and how do we look at trying to have the right number of kids, the right type of kids in each of these facilities. So again, tonight is going to be a lot more of us talking, but there's going to be really the last portion of this is going to be a round robin activity. So those metal chairs get uncomfortable. You're going to be able to move around to some different maps that we've put together, and we'll talk more about that when we get there. So I do want to give a little bit more of an introduction with RSP. We exclusively work with school districts all through the Midwest, and specifically with issues of what's happening with their enrollments, what's their capacity, functional capacity of a building, how do you realign boundaries? How do you look for new sites? How do you do different things that get into even the specifics of what's happening in the classroom for each school? With me facilitating tonight is a good friend and colleague, Dr. Jay Harris. It's the first time I get to call him doctor. He finally got his EDD. But he's a current administrator, and during the summer, he's able to do a lot of facilitation with us on summer projects. He has been in many of these different processes with me where we have a lot of these various challenges of too many kids, too few kids, and how do we work our way through this? And so tonight we'll really start to get into what does that mean? What are you being asked to do? Another housekeeping thing that I want to mention to you is at each of your tables is a sign-in sheet. So if you did not sign that, please sign that. So that's one thing that I was told by administration to put out to you. So tonight, our focus is going to be about what is this process? What is this ACE concept? What are the guiding principles and the boundary criteria? You received a homework packet, and I think it was like almost 80 pages, right? So if you read all of that and you understood every single thing that was in there, you are going to be bored tonight. If you did not understand some of those things, we're going to have some moments where you can ask some questions because we want to make sure you as a boundary team member, you understand what it is that we're embarking on and how some of these maybe minutia details could have an impact on how our conversations proceed in each of these meetings. We do use some different technologies through our process. One of them is Poll Everywhere, and we're going to use this tonight. And so if you have a cell phone, pull your cell phone out. I'm going to have to probably go from memory what you're going to have to type in because I don't see it up here. So you're going to type in to, I believe it's 2, 2, and then 4 3s. And you're going to type in the text of RSP and then meeting. I'm going to go to my phone just to make sure I'm right on that because it's been a while since I've done this. RSP is one meeting. And it's 2 2s and 4 3s. Sorry about that. Let's see.
Rob, you have a question?
22. Oh, the letters RSP, MEETING. Is it 3 3s? There you go. Thank you. Thank you. 2 2s, 3 3s, and RSP meeting. So in your text, when you go to type a text, type in the numbers 2 2, and then 3 3s. And then with the text box, you'll type in the letters RSP and meeting.
Don't put a space. See, try that.
I'm hearing people do it. I forgot we took it off because sometimes when we've been doing Zoom meetings, it's up there, and we have people that are in the Zoom meetings and they know how to get into our meeting for the poll questions. So I'm going to have you type in, and then Jay's going to do some speaking here, but type in what your favorite vacation spot is.
Did that work?
And then Jay, you can jump into the intro.
Sure. Okay, good evening, everyone. While you're working on your poll everywhere, and we use this tool because throughout our presentations, there'll be a number of questions we ask, and it's just a quick feedback opportunity. And we'll use this throughout all the presentations from now through until we wrap up this process. And so it's a great opportunity for you to give real quick feedback. We can collect it real time, and then we can kind of consolidate some themes as we move forward. So I do want to take just a second for us to do some quick introductions. We have a number of us in here, so this is just a real quick 15 seconds or less. If you don't mind, we'll go one table at a time. But stand up, let us know your name, what elementary attendance area you live in, and your role. Are you a parent, you a staff member, are you both, and the number of students you have in the district. So a quick introduction, name, what elementary attendance area, the number of students you have in the district, and what your role is at this meeting. And we'll start with table number one. And sir, you want to start? Yeah, you can stand up, that'd be great, thank you. 15
right.
seconds, real quick.
15 seconds, okay. My name is Cody Fleming. I'm at Graham Elementary, would be our elementary. I have 2 kids there. They'll be in 5th and 2nd this next year. I'm here as a parent, but also I'm a teacher in a neighboring district. So.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Audra Brasky. I have an incoming kindergartner at Brookdale and a almost 3rd grader.
Christine Jeffries. I live in the district, southwest end, and I'm president of the Naperville Development Partnership. So I'm here to assist with the district.
Hi everybody, my name is Ila Taneja. I'm a rising senior at Neuqua Valley High School, and I'm here to serve as a selected student representative to give a more student perspective since we tend to see the side effects firsthand.
I am Tina Jakshi, and I'm a resident of District 204 for 20 years. I have a student who graduated from Matia, go Mustangs, and then I have a rising junior at Matia. I'll hand over to table 2.
Hi, I'm Joanne Frisbee. I have 2 students in the district, and they both attend Scullin Middle School.
Hi, my name is Kavita Aurora. I have 2 kids in Peterson in 2nd and 4th grade and a daughter in preschool.
Hello, I'm Angela Hine. I have 2 children at White Eagle going into 5th and 3rd grade, and I'm just a parent.
Hi, I'm Kathy Zumba. I have 3 children, a 7th grader here at Still and 2 at Gombert.
Hi, I'm Subbu Besta. So I have a kid going into 1st grade to Stick Elementary.
Hi, my name is Grace Eric. I have 3 boys, 2 in Peterson Elementary and 1 preschooler coming in here as a parent.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Rodabaugh. I have 4 kids in the district, a junior at Neuqua, 7th grader at Crone, and 2 at Patterson.
Hi, I'm Shweta Hiramat. I'm representing Kendall Elementary. I have 2 kids going to Kendall, 1 in 5th grade and 1 in 2nd grade. I'm here as a parent.
Hello, I'm Zachary Hensley. I've got 1 girl in Hill and 2 at Brookdale, and I'm also here as a parent.
Kevin Pronitis. I got 2 daughters. 1 is going into 3rd grade at Steck, and 1 is going to 6th grade at Fisher. And then I represent a household, the Brady Bunch, and she has 2 boys, and 1 is a freshman at Wabanzi, and 1 is going into 4th grade at Steck. So.
My name is Joe Warpinski. I have a soon-to-be 5th grade daughter and a preschooler, my son, at home, so I'm representing as a parent.
I'm Brian Sloan. I have 1 daughter who's in the STEPS program at Neuqua, and I'm here as the newly elected president of the Parent-Teacher-Student Association there.
Hi, my name is Jeanette Shiminkovich. My daughter graduated from Wabanzi in 2015. Hi there. And will be our 3rd boundary changes since I've been in district. She was in 204 from kindergarten on, so looking forward to it.
Hello, I am Seth Dowling. I have 3 children. I have a 1 going into 1st grade at Springbrook, a kindergartner going into Springbrook, and a preschooler. I am here as a parent.
Hi, I'm LaTreviette McCline. I am here as a parent. I have a soon-to-be 8th grader son and a soon-to-be 4th grader, Nala.
Hi everyone, I'm Gretchen Weber. I have an incoming 3rd grader at Brooks and a sophomore at Mattia. Think about that for a minute, it's summer.
Hi, I'm Rachel O'Seara. I'm here as a former parent and someone who's been involved in several different units of government in the local area. My kids both graduated from Waubonsee Valley High School, although I live in the Brooks Elementary School area, which is a feeder to Mattia.
Hi, I'm Nikki Wolford. I have 2 kids at Owen, or no, 1 kid at Owen and 2 here at Still. So I'm here as a parent.
Hi, I'm Kathy Dunn. I have 2 children in the district, both at Springbrook Elementary School, and I'm here as a parent.
Hi, Josh Logan. I have 2 girls. One is going to be a 5th grader at Young, and I have an incoming freshman at Mattia. I'm here as a parent.
All right, I got a long one. I'm Jen Reyes. I have 3 children in the district. One is going to be a 5th grader at McCarty, one is going to be a 6th grader at Fisher, and one is going to be a junior at Waubonsee. I was a dean at Mattia for 6 years, and my kid's dad is a math teacher at Nequa, so I'm here as whatever you want me to be.
Hi, I'm Sunita Ramadhu, and I'm here, I guess, as whatever it is, because I have 2 boys. One graduated from Waubonsee, and one is going to be a senior at Waubonsee. So I'm here as an interested party.
Hi, my name is Amy Emery. I have 2 children in the district. I have a son that will be an 8th grader at Hill Middle School and another son who will be a 2nd grader at Brookdale. And I'm also a City of Naperville employee for 15 years in the Planning Services Division as an operations manager there, working on the comp plan and a lot of the development projects that have an impact on growth and development in this district and in District 203.
Hello, my name is Ofelina Rosa. I have 2 kids. One is a sophomore at Mattia, and another one is a 3rd grader in Maywatts. I am also here a parent and a school district employee, and I am the Family and Community Engagement Director at the State PTA.
Hi, Wendy Cortez. I have 2 kids in Fry, kindergartner and a 3rd grader, so I'm here as a parent.
Hi, I'm Christine Shiro. I have 4 children that went, one that just graduated. Was a senior. She just graduated this year. I had one that graduated 2 years ago, and I have a junior at Waubonsee and a 5th grader at Owen. So I'll be representing Owen.
Hi, my name is Marianne Banks. I have a rising senior at Waubonsee. I also had a son graduated from Waubonsee in 2020, and I'm also the president of Pages, which is a parent group at Waubonsee Valley High School.
Hi everyone, my name is Carrie Baffis. I have 2 students in the district. Brooks is our elementary school, but my kids are older than that. I have an incoming 8th grader at Granger and an incoming senior at Mattia, and I have a daughter who graduated from Mattia in 2020. I'm here as a parent.
Hi, Richard White. I've got 2 kids in Brookdale, an incoming 3rd grader and an incoming kindergartner. I'm here as a parent, although I did go through the 204 school system, and that was back when they only had 1 high school.
Which was?
Waubonsee.
I'm the Waubonsee incoming PTA president, so I had to do the green and gold plug. My name is Shelby Schultz. I'm here as a parent. I have 3 students who are going through 204. One just graduated from Waubonsee, a junior, and an 8th grader at Scullin.
Oh, I guess everybody's standing up. I'm Brian Palm. I have 2 kids in the district, or actually 1 now. I have a 23-year-old that was a graduate of Mattia. I have an incoming sophomore. I am a green and gold graduate of the district, and that I've gone through Longwood through Waubonsee, and then I'm also on the Fair Housing and Human Rights Commission for the City of Naperville.
Hi, I'm Colleen Hepner. I'm here as a parent. I have a daughter going into Fisher as a 6th grader, and I have a 4th grader at Georgetown.
Hi, I'm Emily Langen. I have 3 boys. One's going to be a 3rd grader at Springbrook. I have a 7th grader at Gregory, and I'm going to have a freshman at Nequa. I'm also the co-president of the Gregory PTA.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ed Sieben. I'm with the City of Aurora. I'm the City of Aurora Zoning and Planning Director. I've worked for the City of Aurora for 21 years, and I've lived in Aurora for 32 years. I do live on the west side of Aurora, but I've lived on both the east and west sides. Do have 3 kids. They're all out of school, and they all have jobs, so I'm an empty nester. So.
Hi, I'm Nikita Stewart. I have 2 students in the district. One is an 8th grader at Granger Middle School, and I have a junior at Mattia Valley High School, and I'm also the president of PACES at Mattia Valley High School.
Hi, I'm Ravi Khanna. I have a daughter who just graduated from Mattia and a son who is now in Hill in 7th grade.
Hi, I'm Christina Miller. I have a 2nd grader at May Watts and a 7th grader at Hill, and I am so glad I finally figured out it's Mattia. Like literally, if I get nothing else out of this committee, I know how to say it now. I go back and forth. Yes, that is, because he's going to be a freshman, so I got to represent.
Hi, everyone. I'm Bridget McKernan. I have children at all 3 levels in the district. I have a rising 3rd grader at May Watts, a 7th grader at Hill, and a senior at Mattia.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mary Zalabek. I am a teacher and a parent in the district. I am a special education teacher at Young Elementary. My elementary school is built up. I have 2 graduated from Nequa and a current sophomore at Nequa.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Matthew Richey. I have identical 4-year-old twin boys that are going to Prairie Children Preschool, 2-year-old daughter, and about 3 weeks, a second daughter on the way. Our feeder school would be Owen Elementary. I'm here as a parent, and I am also the Naperville Township Assessor-elect, taking office January 1st, 2022.
Hello everyone, my name is Fazita Rahman. I have 2 girls, one rising junior in Wabansi and one is an incoming 7th grader in Fisher Middle School. I'm also an educator / small business owner serving 204 students, so I'm here.
Hi everyone, I'm Yolanda Morris. I am a parent, but also the new co-president for Collishout Elementary. I have 1 child. She will be in 5th grade this year.
Hi, I'm Karen Zatz. I have 3 children in the district, 1 at Scullin and 2 at Wabansi, and I'm also one of the leaders of the Parent Diversity Advisory Committee.
Hi, I'm Scott Greenstreet. My daughter graduated from Nequa.
Hi, good evening. I'm Brian Biltis. I had 2 daughters go through the school district, Wheatland, Scullin, and Nequa. I've been in the district 25 years. I'm also the regional vice president for Airmark that provides all the custodial maintenance and grounds work for the district, and we're proud to have been here for the last 25 to 28 years as well. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, everyone, and a lot of representation across the district. That's an important part of this process, so it was important for us to hear from you, learn who you are, and know what areas that you are going to be here to represent, but also know that we're here to make decisions for the best interest of everybody. Quick introduction, I'm Jay Harris. Again, I'm an educational consultant with RSP and with Rob. I have 7 children, none of which go to Indian Prairie School District or ever have, but I do have 1 Illinois resident, as I have a daughter that is getting her MBA at Northwestern right now, paid for by her company, yay Hannah, so good job with that one. But I've been in education for 31 years. I'm a district office administrator in a district just north of Kansas City, and happy to be here with you. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Rob.
All right, so we'll start out with the process. And I just want to give like 2 minutes on this, and hopefully you saw this in your homework. There's many colors that go into this process. It started with the blue, and the blue is the Board of Education. It's going to end with a blue box, the Board of Education. We have the green colors, and there's multiple boxes. That's you, the boundary team. We're basically meeting almost every 2 weeks through the summer. The yellow is RSP as a consultants. We're primarily doing things with your enrollment analysis, the facilitation, and how we put all this data together to be able to say, here's what this may look like for our boundaries. The pinkish color is administration, and we'll lean on them for certain things. And that also reminds me that anything that we talk about, and let's say you have a question, but it's not about the things we're covering this evening, we like to think of that as a parking lot. And so what we've put at each of your tables is some yellow sticky notes, and you guys have some pens. And so if there's something that you don't know an answer to, or you have a question about something, write that on there. And at the end of the night, we'll either come to the tables, or you can bring them up to this head table, and we'll look at those and see how we can answer those questions at the next meeting. We then have the most important box, and it's only one box. It's the orange box. That's where we take the work that we've put together here as a boundary team, and we present it to the community to get their feedback. The way this process was lined up was we know there's going to be some very difficult conversations. There may be some of you here this evening that think we don't need to change any boundaries. They can just stay the same. You're going to see through some of the data that that's probably not the case, because we have some buildings where there's too many kids, and we have some other buildings where we're at like 35% utilization. So as we work through this process, when we get to that orange box, that's going to be the key component to know how well the work that we've been doing over the last, at that point, 4 months, how does that fit together with the direction the community may be thinking, and is there some changes that we maybe need to think about that go back to the initial charge the board has given us? Again, those are the colors. I'm going to step into the board charge here in a moment, but what I wanted everyone to understand, when you go and talk to the people in your community, whether it's at church, the grocery store, wherever that may be, there is something that's wrapped around this entire process, and we refer to it as this ACE. We have certain things that when you talk about the school that your children have gone to or are going to, you have a certain amount of pride for that particular school, and that's very understandable. When we think about academics, the district does its best to have curriculums that are unified throughout each of these buildings, but sometimes there's some differences based on the way the facility is or how the students are receiving the information, the teachers, etc. And so we have to always keep in mind there's this academic piece that may be a little bit different in each of these buildings. We also know that there's a cultural element, and that cultural element gets into some of these traditions, the reputations of how you feel about that building. So we always have to keep that in mind as we go to make any sort of changes with what these attendance boundaries look like. We then have a third reality, dollars. And it's good to know we have someone here that if you don't like the value of your home, he just told you, come to him, right? Public announcement. So we have a reality of what we can do, right? The district just doesn't have a blank checkbook that they can say, here is a solution, it costs 20 million, 10 million, whatever it is, that they can actually do those things. So that's wrapped around this process. We have this goal of enhancing what we've already been able to achieve for each of our kids in the district. We have to be mindful of the cultural elements that make each of these places special, and each of these places where you feel like you have a lot of pride in what is happening in those buildings, and then the dollars. We had some guiding principles that we worked with the Board of Education to be able to create some of these bumpers that we know what are we actually trying to do here. And I already set the stage that if you thought we're not doing anything, that's probably not an outcome that the board is going to fully accept. So each of these bullet points, and I'm not going to read through each of these, but you want to come back to this. These are some of the elements that we want to make sure with any change that we are adhering to this. So whether it's the equitable experience, or that we're focusing on each of the grade levels. So if you thought, hey, my kids are in elementary, I'm not so concerned about high school, we're going to have some conversations where there may be some challenges with high school. You may think from the top down, being the high school, that's the pinnacle, right? We're trying to get our kids to high school and graduate. How does that fit into how you view what the district boundaries look like? And we've heard some of that where there's, hey, I'm green and gold, right? That means something in 204, whatever your colors are for each of the 3 high schools. We also worked with the Board of Education on boundary criteria to be able to establish some metrics in which we as a group can determine, are we hitting those standards as the board intended or as the way the criteria is explained. And so we have 10 criteria, and they're listed here alphabetically. And so I'm just briefly going to go through them. So contiguous areas kind of sounds like a disease, right? But it's, think about compact, trying to keep things compact. Right now, your district's not very compact, right? If you didn't know that, well, now that's something you maybe learned. Demographic considerations. There's different types of demographics by which we can look at your district, whether it's a free and reduced lunch, ethnicity, type of housing, all sorts of things that we can understand what that means and what does that ultimately look like as we try to balance demographics in your district. Duration of boundaries. I think most of you stated you were parents. You want the boundaries to last forever. And I think it's been 11 years since the last big boundary change. And so that's quite remarkable with everything the district's gone through in that particular time period. So can we make these boundaries last a long time? We have feeder system considerations. So do we have a complete feeder? So does one elementary move into one middle school and then on into one high school? Is that possible as we start to look at some of these criteria? The goal might be to have a complete feeder system. Fiscal consideration-capital. So this is about investing in the buildings. And this criteria, we'd be saying we're not trying to build new buildings or do significant remodelings. We had fiscal consideration-operational, and this relates to how we staff the buildings. The number of kids that we have in these buildings, the class sizes start to influence whether or not we need more staff or fewer staff, or how does that staff actually operate in that building. So we don't want to increase those expenses. Neighborhoods intact. I want to take a brief moment. I'll talk about this here in a couple minutes in even greater detail, but the way we look at a neighborhood would be similar if you could go into the city or the county data sets and you look at your subdivision where you live. We try to boil things down to those specific elements, whether it's single family, multifamily, apartments, condos. That's the lowest level that we would say is a neighborhood. And here we'd say we're trying to keep all of that neighborhood going to one elementary, one middle school, and one high school. We then have projected enrollment building utilization, wanting to make sure we have the right enrollments with what the capacity of the building is. We'll talk about this particular chart that I have as a visual here in a moment. But again, we want to balance that out so that we have the right staffing, the right experience that the students can have in each of those buildings. Students impacted by a boundary change. Here, we would want to minimize the number of students that would be disrupted by any of the changes that you might be proposing when we get to the end of this project. Transportation considerations. Oh my gosh, it's Chicago. It's terrible to drive around here. I think it took me 20 minutes to go 5 miles. You're like, that's probably pretty quick in some occasions. So transportation is going to be hard with the geography, right? Some of our road network just limits us to be able to create some compact areas. So those were the criteria that we gave the board. We initially, through a survey tool that we had, MetroQuest, we asked them, hey, what are you guys thinking when they had a presentation like this? And then they went back, looked at their homework, and they answered, hey, we thought demographic considerations, duration of boundaries, that's really one of our top things that we're thinking as a board should be what this boundary team considers for being the highest priority of what this attendance area may look like when we're completed. Then they were looking at projected enrollment, building utilization, neighborhoods intact, and then you can read the third level. Again, all 10 of these are important and they'll play into this. Then we had another workshop with the board members because this was the first time they had heard of these terms and how this all would fit together. So after that meeting, we then had them send back what were the top 3 choices that they felt with the experiences now that they had with 2 different meetings and all of this homework, maybe conversations with some of you. And so they felt the number 1 criteria that we should be looking at in this process is making sure we have demographics balanced as we look at the elementary buildings, the middle school buildings, and then the high school buildings. The second criteria was to be able to keep the neighborhoods intact. So you go back to what I was saying with that definition. Then we had a third criteria that we had a tie for. And so it was they didn't want to build any new buildings. And you're going to hear we have a declining enrollment, so that would make sense. We're not building new buildings. And they wanted to make sure that we had the right enrollment with the capacity in each of those buildings. So this is the framework. We're always going to come back to these boundary criteria, these guiding principles, and any of the options that we look at. Again, we even gave you a breakdown so you could see how it actually looked with the weighting. We like to try to create some general guidelines for us as a facilitator and you as people that are engaging. And one of the things you're going to see as we go through these meetings, we will be talking less and there will be a lot more conversation at your tables because it's less about us and more about you. We'll talk more about consensus as we move through this process. So I just kind of put this up, kind of a subliminal message of, hey, at some point, we're going to have to come to an agreement on whatever moves forward to, first, it's going to be the public, but then what goes to the board. So this is generally how we start to think about consensus. I'm going to take a moment. Was there any questions about boundary criteria or the process? Pretty straightforward. Okay, so now I'm going to take the next 10 or so minutes and I'm going to take you through what I spent 30 minutes with the board talking about what's happening with enrollment, what is occurring with the capacity of the buildings, where are we seeing development. So as we looked at a whole host of things, and when you go back to that main homework, you're going to see this is more than just trend data. This is specific information that we've collected, whether it's from the school district, from the townships, the cities, the villages, the counties, to be able to understand what's happening in your district and how does it relate to what we may see with a future enrollment in your school district. And you can see that overall we're showing an enrollment decrease. And that may be a surprise by looking at how much we're saying it's going to decrease. We'll give you some information here as I work through this to understand why that is happening. We've already mentioned numerous times with capacity, there's some buildings that have too many kids, others that have too few. We know your development opportunities, they're limited. Some of them could be pretty extreme right up here with Fox Valley Mall and some of the developments that may be occurring there with multifamily. But we've tried to put all that stuff into play, whether it's those that we think are coming online or as we see Wagner Farms finish out. There's the geographic context. So we always have to understand how linear our district is, what cities or villages are in play. So the district map helps illustrate all the different entities that are at play here from a municipal standpoint. We have the existing elementary attendance areas, so the 21 elementary buildings color-coded. Where you see the blank spaces on each of these maps, that's basically where there has traditionally been a non-residential component. One of the things we're going to have to talk about is with Fox Valley Mall having some residential pieces that will be built, there'll be some colors that'll have to be put in those areas. We have the middle school attendance areas, the high school attendance areas, and then where we drill a little bit deeper into the analysis that RSP has done is we have these planning areas. So we give you a visual that you can see an aerial. The dots represent students. Faintly, there's a green line through there. That's the planning area. All of this relates back to what we're calling a sophisticated forecast model, fancy for statistics. So some of these, we know we have one table back there that is a math person. You can maybe test her, see if she knows this statistical equation. But basically, all the variables that we look at are different in these over 500 planning areas that we've created in your district, and you'll see that in some maps coming up. We do look at birth information in the counties, and this is important because when you're starting to hear some of the census data that's coming out, I don't know if you're paying attention to this, but nationally, we're only having 1.7 kids per household. So we're not even replacing the two people that typically are creating that child. And what's interesting is if we listen to what we've heard here in this room, many of you have more than 2 kids. So you're above that. So we want to look at live birth data, and we want to compare it to what that means 5 years later. Another thing that we've tried to look at with this data is we had this pandemic, right? And so we had a lot of families that may have elected to not send their kids to public schools for, let's say, kindergarten or really for any of those grades. But we're starting to hear data, we're starting to see data with early returns on some of the kindergarten roundups. Are we going to see those kids come back into the system? Will they be kindergartners, like redshirt kindergartners, or will they be able to go on into first grade based on whatever they received during this pandemic year? So there's a lot of things that we're trying to look at with some of these data sets. We try to give you a baseline of what the enrollment is by grade. The bulk of your growth or your decrease is when we look at this senior class. Look how large all of these classes are. We come over the following year, look how much smaller the kindergarten classes are. So we naturally are seeing more kids graduate than are actually coming into the system in kindergarten. We look at this again a little bit differently from that previous table because we want to understand what's the change as you go from first to second or seventh to eighth. And so you can see what the changes are each year and where we've seen some increases, where we've seen some decreases. Again, just to get a sense of what's happening district-wide. All of this is, again, aggregated back into each of those planning areas. We look at migration of students. In your packet, we had an in-migration, out-migration map. Here, we just condensed it to one for you to understand there's a lot of movement in the district, either new kids coming in or kids that were receiving services and going someplace else. Maybe moving out of the district, maybe just choosing another option for their instructional modality choice. When we look at each of these planning areas, on this particular map, we're showing where there's been an increase and when there's been a decrease. Orange is an increase, green is a decrease. And if we put this as an animated map, you would see many of these planning areas that may increase one year and then the next year they decrease. Again, very dynamic, very fluid, based on how we're seeing things, code words of like regreening, so more families moving in that have school-age children, or graying, where there's families that are just cycled through the system and they're not being replaced. Maybe they're staying longer. And we saw some of this back in the 2008 housing downturn where people stayed in their house longer, so we didn't see a lot of the new in-migration trends that were occurring. We also have showed a map of like where those students are based on their address. The red and orange areas are where there's the greatest number of students. And so you, again, get a sense of where some of this is. In the activity that we're going to end with, this map and the previous map may help you in some of the conversation that we have. I won't read all these enrollment observations. Again, some of the stuff that we tried to baseline is what's happening with census population. So we didn't have all the 2020 census data yet, but what we've indicated with some of the census data sets we've looked at, there tends to be more people moving into your district boundary than what there were in previous years. The blue line is representing the number of units that were coming online. Again, I've already mentioned to you, we have fewer possibilities of where we see some of those enrollments or new developments. And then the red line represents the enrollment change. And you can see it's been below 0. And then this last year, it went off a lot greater than what it has in years past. Almost every district we've worked with, that has been the case. I want you to understand some of the other nuances to the data that we look at is when we classify those planning areas by the type of developments, we're trying to understand what is the typical number of kids that we're going to yield. So we don't yield 0.93 kids, right? So this is per parcel. So when we look at this, if I did this by 100 units, we would get 93 K-12 students for every 100 units of single family in 2007. And you can see it's consistently decreased down to about 60 students for every 100 single family units. We look at the same thing with multifamily, which is everything that's not single family. So is it condos, duplexes, apartments, mobile homes? We can see a different trend. If we go back in 2007, it was 23 for every 100 multifamily units, and look how it's increased to 31. So differing story. When I told you there's a lot more multifamily, this kicked off another study that we did for the district. Those of you in Naperville, this is where the ordinance got amended because there's more kids coming out of the multifamily developments, which could have an impact on how we can utilize some of the buildings where those developments are. We do look at where home values are because that does drive some of the indicators of the number of kids that we potentially could see. The values where you see color-coded red and orange, those are the least affordable. When we get into the blues and the greens, most affordable. And that's a debatable term depending on where your house is, right? We do, from all the information that we received from the cities, where we saw the ability for infrastructure to come online, we created a map where we potentially would see some of these new developments. And again, most of them are going to be multifamily developments. We've listed them out in this table so you can get a sense of the units that are currently in those developments and then the potential units that could come online. So there's still quite a few units that can be built, about 2,300 units. And again, this could change as we see some of these developments change over time as they go through the city process. Again, I won't spend much time on these slides other than to help you understand that as we broke this out by the cities, what we were seeing in Table 1 is single-family development. So the orange bar represents the units and as they came online. And so that's this left-hand y-axis. The blue line is the number of kids that we saw within the city limits of Aurora attending 204, and we can see that it's decreased. Table 2 is when we look at the multifamily, so the same situation, and then Table 3 is where we aggregate both the single family and multifamily, and then in Table 4 we're trying to look at what type of development are we seeing, what's the mix as we look at this over time. Did the same thing for Naperville as well. Already mentioned all of these bullet points, you can come back to that. So here's the projection outlook. You can see that it's consistently been decreasing all the way back here, I think since 2009, 2010, we've started seeing decreases. Go back to those tables where I show you enrollment by grade, it really becomes evident of what's been happening in the area as some of the housing inventory has aged. I'm going to explain this table. This may be where you had a lot of questions. And there's a lot of information on the table that ensues. So everything that you see on this page will be talked about on these series of tables that follow. So we list off each of the buildings. We have located whether they were north or south of 34 Highway, just for a geographic context, probably more for me than anyone. It's color-coded based on the feeder. So you see we're already a broken feeder in our situation, so if you go back to one of those criteria. So it's kind of messy when we have all these colors. We have the capacity the district provided us, and that's what they consider a functional capacity for the number of kids that can be in those buildings, and that goes back to that projected enrollment building utilization. How are we matching up to this? We show the enrollment 3 different ways based on where they reside. Are they actually in that attendance area? Are they attending? So this middle row green font is, do they reside, and are they in those grades for that particular building? The blue font, bottom row for every building, is the number of students based on the student information system, how many kids are actually attending. Top one is the reside/attend. It's a subset of reside, so we know, are they actually residing and attending? This gets into understanding where programs are not, or choices that may be happening. And we heard some of that here in the introductions of, I may live in one attendance area, but I'm actually sent my kids someplace else. Then the color coding as we go through the past enrollments and the future enrollments is all tied to, is it over the capacity of the building or is it under the capacity of the building? And we're saying you want to have these buildings at least 75%. If they're less than 75%, they may not be realizing their full utilization. So that's where we get the gray. When it's white, it means it's within the framework of being an efficient building. And this should be the table that as you're looking at, where are our problem areas? When we see orange, too many kids. Gray, not enough kids. So then as we start to put a geographic context to that, we may start to see some solutions that we will be able to consider. And again, we do this for each of the buildings, all through the systems. You can see all of this all the way through the high school. Did I meet my time constraint? Oh, yes, I did. Right there. All right, so I'm now going to turn this over to Jay as we prepare everything that I just threw down at you, what you looked at in this homework. Now, how do we put this into play, knowing, and I'm going to preface this so then it goes to Jay, we know you're not going to know specifically the number of kids that are in any particular area, but we do know that you have some understanding about where you live, and maybe if your building has too many kids, areas that maybe might be something to consider, that if we had to remove a certain population to get them within the capacity guidelines, what could we ideally do to do that? And so I'm going to kick this off to Jay. He's going to explain more, and then I'm going to help Matt pass out the maps that you guys are going to be putting your comments on. So go, Jay.
Okay, thank you. We're going to have some maps delivered to your table, and you will rotate through really in the row that you're at. So an elementary map will be placed here, middle school map will be placed on table 2, high school map on table 3. You'll go through your activity with that map, and then the map will stay there, and we'll have you rotate just within those 3 tables. Same thing for the middle section, 4, 5, and 6, elementary, middle, high school, and we'll carry that theme all the way through. So you might want to clear your area a little bit on your table so you can have a place to set the map. And we'll kind of walk you through an exercise. And essentially, there are a number of you that may have a lot of opinions about how those boundaries, what the boundaries should look like. There may be some of you that have no idea. And some of you may just have things to consider, ideas, themes, questions. It doesn't matter what you write on that map, we'll take it all. You can write on your sticky note, you can place it on the map, you can write directly on the map, you can start drawing sample lines on the map if you want to, because this is very high level. We are starting, think of this as a filter. We are starting really big, and then as we go through this process, we will start refining this every time. So we know that we did a lot of talking tonight and covered a lot of information. We want you to be able to share some of your thoughts. Whether they're going to end up being the final decision or not, it doesn't matter. We want to start collecting those themes, because we will come back with some revised scenarios in future meetings that we can start refining. So at your table, again, we'll have an elementary map, a middle school map, and a high school map, and with your kind of row of 3 tables. We want you to start thinking about where could some of these potential boundaries go? Where do we need to find relief in certain buildings? Where do we need to also increase the capacity? Or what is a theme that you want us to think about? What's a question that you have? Any of that, you can write it directly on the map. We'll give you about 10 minutes. You can talk amongst your group. You can decide on your own what you want to do. Then we'll rotate you through. Okay?
And Jay, if I could just get one more minute with you guys. All of the maps on the right-hand side, you're going to see a table. So if you're looking at the elementary map, it's going to be the elementary schools, middle school maps. There's going to be a column in there that has a plus, a minus, or a plus and a minus in it. So if it has a plus, that means that attendance area has too many kids. If it has a minus, there's too few kids. If it has a plus or minus, it's right where it ideally should be. Go back to the handout that is also at each of your tables. You can see where kids are, what enrollments are, and then the visual of the map is what the current boundaries are. So go.
excellent conversation going on thus far. And feel free, again, to make comments, questions, recommendations. If you want to draw a line on your map, feel free to do that. Don't feel like you have to get it right now. Don't feel like it's got to be perfect right now. So we're going to rotate here in a few minutes. So kind of wrap up your thoughts, and then we'll rotate. Okay, we're going to wrap up in 60 seconds, and then we're going to rotate to the next table.
High school to go to the elementary.
Yeah, yeah. Thirty seconds. Okay, time. Now, if I can get everyone's attention just for a second, please. If you're at the elementary table, you're going to rotate to the middle school. Middle school will rotate to the high school. High school will rotate to the elementary. And we'll give you another 10 minutes at that table. Again, high-level ideas, jot some thoughts down. We will keep refining this every time we come back. So go ahead and rotate now. When he went, it was up to 20 in the classroom. Okay, 1 minute, wrap up your conversation at this table, and then we'll rotate again. Thirty seconds. Okay, let's rotate again. So again, within your row, you should go to the last table within your row that you have not been to thus far. Okay, we will start your 10 minutes now. Okay. All right, one more minute at this table. Thirty seconds. Okay, time. Let's rotate back to your original table and have a seat, and we will wrap up this evening's presentation. As you make your way to your original seat, okay, if you can have a seat, we'll just wrap up with a few comments and get you out of here tonight. Okay, excellent conversation. I know that we could probably stay here another several hours and keep going through this and have a lot of ideas, but keep in mind, this is one high-level opportunity of many to get more feedback and to share thoughts, that all these ideas allows our collected wisdom to continue to refine what could be a potential boundary scenario. And we'll bring back scenarios to consider. And as we go through that, some you'll like, some you may not like, but we'll start connecting them to our criteria. So good job. We appreciate that. One quick reminder, on your sticky notes, if there's something that you thought of that we didn't cover tonight, that you want more information on, or you have a question, feel free to write that down on that yellow sticky note, and we'll come by and pick those up, because we want to make sure we collect what we call our parking lot and address those questions as we come back at a later date. Okay, Rob.
All right, so I know this may have been a challenge for some of you as I walked around. Gosh, can I have all three maps together? Can I have this data here or here? There's a point to all of this. We had it broken out by the levels, because the way in which you may think about how we solve this problem, some of you may think, well, if we just do a change at the high school and then we move that down to the middle school and then into the elementary, that may be the way we solve this. Some of you that maybe start at the elementary go, hey, if we fix the elementary, we'll get these building blocks all figured out. It will naturally lead its way into the middle school, then the high school, and then you can see if we start from the middle school. Well, nothing ever starts from the middle school. What am I saying? And I say that in jest. So here's where we're left with. We're going to take everything that you put on these maps, and we're going to try to discern what you have, what were some of the common themes. And our goal when we come back at the next meeting will be to give you some initial thoughts about what we heard, what we saw on these particular maps. So July 21st, so 2 weeks from now, we're going to be meeting, same time, same place. I know it's summertime, but what you're going to see is if you miss a meeting, you're going to quickly fall back. So we really encourage you to come. You're going to see more conversation that is like what we end it with, because we don't have to baseline with everything that we need to start out with. So just know we want more of this, because that's how we're going to get to our solutions. And I also want to keep in mind November, that's when we have our public input, so think about that when it's cold up here. Answer one last question on your cell phone, and I want to leave you with feeling satisfied as you went through this tonight. So if you were someone that you're like, I've not seen the district in this way, this large map, on a map, and seeing it in the context of these numbers, we're going to slowly bring you along. At the next meeting, you're going to have even more information. Things that may be related to geography, like, for instance, if you notice, where do we have most of our schools that we have too many kids? Do we have enough facilities with how we've been looking at boundaries? How does that then start to relate to, is there just small changes versus larger changes? So that is all I have to say tonight, other than saying thank you for your participation. Do you want to say something? Does Matt?
I just want to say one. I just put in the back of the room, Ms. Deming, board member, is here tonight, and also Ms. Patty Smith. Alderman from Aurora is here tonight. I didn't introduce them, and I would be remiss if I did not thank my communications staff led by Ms. Lisa Berry, and also my Chief School Business Officer, Matt Shipley, is here tonight. They have really put this all on tonight, and I really have to thank them as well. So back to you, Rob, to finish it out.
You're dismissed. Thank you.